Hello students, this is week 6 and the topic for this week is data visualization. As usual, let's address the learning guide. So again, the topic is data analysis and visualization using Excel pivot table. You're going to learn everything that you need to know about pivot table by watching this video here. It takes about an hour. It is a must video for you to watch. So my advice is for you to go watch this video and then come back to this lecture so I can show you how you can finish your exercise. So I'll see you again in about an hour. So this is a data set you're going to use for your exercise. It is an exported data from a Google paid search campaign for the first quarter of 2020, January, February, and March. As you can see, this file needs still some work. You have some empty rows here, and you also have to convert this to table. And I'm not going to cover this since this was already covered on the video that you just watched. You should end up with something like this. The colors might be different because you might choose different colors of the table, but this is basically all set to go. So before we create our pivot table, let's make sure that we name this table. Let's start by label this table. Right here, you click on table, you go right here, just put any name you want there. You cannot have space, so I'm going to do underscore. I'm going to do underscore here because it does not allow you to have space. So once you have that, now I'll move to name also this. I'm going to just name it dataset. Now we are ready to go. How do you create a pivot table? The tutorial you watched a few minutes ago shows you a few ways to do that. I'm going to create a pivot table by clicking on the Insert tab right here and then click on Pivot Table. Since you have named this table, it gives you the name of the table. Otherwise, you had to choose the range of the cells. But since you name it, it gives you the name of the table. So you are all set to go. And you leave this by default because you wanted to create the pivot table on the new worksheet. This is an empty pivot table. So what do we have here? Look at this window right here on the right side. Here on field name, you have all the fields on the columns from your data set. So if you go back to your data set, to the Excel data set, you'll see that this is all refers to those columns. You have the filter here, you have the columns, you have the rows and the values. We'll go over that in a second. And here it's an empty pivot table. For this exercise, I'm going to use a couple of values here. I'm going to use conversion rate and also click-through rate. So before I do that, I'm going to name the sheet here because we should name everything here. To name this, just double click there. So I'll name it conversion and click-through rate. So let's start moving some of the values that we have here on the field name into these windows here. We'll start with value. So one way to do this is to click here. You know it's selected when you see the blue line around it. Then you come to the field name and you can just select what value you want. Let's start with the conversion rate. As you can see, the value appears right here. And then the other value that we want is click-through rate. And that value appears right here. As you can see, it gives us the sum of conversion rate and the sum of click-through rate. That's not what we want. We want the average, but we'll leave it for now. We'll come back here and we'll make those adjustments later. Let's get some of the elements that we need. Now we want here on the axis, we want to bring the month. I can just drag and drop. That's another way of doing it. I also want campaign. Let's drag and drop. As you can see, the pivot table is starting to get populated by the values that we brought down. And here we have the chart. Now let's look at this. What I want to do is to visualize the difference from the different campaigns within a particular month. What we have here is the reverse of what I want. I want to have the kids apparel, the women's apparel, and the men's apparel all separate. Here they're all together within a month. The reason it's like this is because the order that we brought those values here, I brought first the month and then the campaign. I want to reverse. So all I have to do is drag the month to the bottom. Now we have the campaign at the top, and now, yeah, this is exactly what I'm looking for. Kids apparel, men's apparel, women's apparel, and then each of the months of the first quarter. Now let's look at the pivot table. Here we have the sum of conversion rate and the sum of click-through rate. As I told you, we don't want the sum, but let's leave this for now so you'll understand why we don't want the sum. So the first thing we have to do, since this should be displayed as percentage, we have to format these two columns within percentage. So the way to do this is to select the column, right click on your button. That's one way of doing this. Format cells, and let's do percentage right here. Now let's go here, do the same. Actually, you could have done both columns simultaneously. Again, percentage. So let's look at this. As you can see, we have some percentage here that doesn't make any sense because the system by default is adding all the different click-through rates and all the different conversion rate. It's the sum, it's the total. So we don't want that. What we want is for the system to give us the average. In order to get the window back, we have to click here on the pivot table. Every time you don't see the window here, click on the pivot table and the window will appear. So let's go here and make some changes. See, it says sum of conversion rate. We'll double click there. Actually, only have to click, not double click. Change this from sum to average. Click OK. As you can see now, this column here has the percentage of average conversion rate, which makes a lot more sense. Now let's do the same for the click-through rate. Click right here at the I button. Do it again. You have to make sure that you do that, otherwise your exercise is all wrong. Now it's fine. As you can see, the click-through rate now makes sense. Now that we have all the data that we want here, let's start working on the look and feel. Let's try to make this a little prettier. I have moved the legend to the top right here, and the way to work with this is by clicking on the legend, do right click, select format legend. As you see, I have selected top right, but you can move to any place you want. I'm going to leave it as is because I think it looks good there. Another element that I want here are the values on top of each of these bars. How do we get those there? Make sure you have the chart select. Go here on Pivot Chart Analysis. Click Design. Go here, Add Chart Element. And we're looking for data labels. It's none now, and we want this on top of each bar. So this is the one, outside end, places the labels on top of each bar, as you can see here. So next step is to change this gap here and to make the bars a little wider. How do we do this? Just by clicking in one of those bars there. Then you see this element here, which has some bars here. You click there, and then you play with the gap width. Just keep playing until you find the sweet spot that you want. I think I like the way it is now. There's enough space and these are together because they're for the month of February, month of January, so you have a gap between each month, which is good. So it looks okay to me. I'll leave it this way. Now maybe we should increase the size of the type here. Let's start by increasing the size of the labels. You select the labels, make sure they're all selected. Go to Home here, then change that to 12 points. Good, 12 points is good. Now do the same for the average click-through rate, 12 points as well. Now we're going to do here on the bottom as well. You click here, make sure everything is selected. Change also to 12. Okay, looks good. I won't do anything else. By the way, I changed also the percentage from 2 decimals to 1 decimal, so it will fit better here. And the way you do this is by going here, clicking there, and you can do it two ways. Go here, Format, Cells, and you have percentage here, and you change original was 2 decimals, and I changed to 1 decimal. I'm going to increase the size of the title right here to probably it's 12. I'm going to change, this should be bigger than 12. I'll change the size of the title from 14 to 16. Looks much better now. I think we're fine here. So the next step is to create a couple of slicers. Slicers are filters. So make sure that you select the pivot chart and that you are on pivot chart analysis. And you see here the button to create slicer. So create on slicer. And we're going to bring two slicers, campaign and ad groups. They work as filters. I'll show you in a second how they work. So let's move them to the left, like there. I'm going to make this a little shorter, like so. Then I move them here on top of that. Okay, now let's play with this so you know how this works. So imagine that now we have kids apparel, men's apparel, and women's apparel all together. You want to just isolate one of these campaigns, like let's say you want just women's apparel. You click here, and it changes to women's apparel. Now you have the data only for women's apparel, and you can do the same for kids apparel. And see, it changes right here. And men's apparel. That changes right there. And you can do the same right here. And to disable the filter, just click here, see here, just click there. And everything goes to normal. Show the full data. That's all. So let's go over the assignment now. So back to Canvas, here's the exercise, the assignment for this week. So make sure you watch the video, the tutorial video, and then here are the steps. First, you have to download the file, the Excel file. Open the Excel file, clean up the data, and then you have to create 4 pivot tables. This first one here is the one I created. Just follow the instructions and then do the same for the number 2 and number 3. Just as you know, you're going to bring different elements, different values. Then the fourth one, the elements that you're going to bring are up to you. So just bring some elements that make sense. Make sure that you're going to bring the campaign and the amount. Those have to be there. Then as far as metrics or the elements that you want to bring, it's totally up to you. So there is 2 components when you create pivot tables and charts. The first component is to bring the data, and the data has to be correct. Make sure everything looks good. Then the second component is how appealing is to your audience. Make sure that you go to all the steps that I've showed you for the type, for the space, and all the labels. So it would be easier for your audience to understand the data. Good luck, and I'll see you next week.